Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Judson Memorial Church. It is wonderful to see you rolling in these doors. My name is Micah. I'm one of the ministers here. My pronouns are he and they. And I am the only one of our clergy team here in the space today. Reverend Julie Johnson-Staples is in our Zoom watch party room, and Reverend Dr. Valerie Holly is on a very much needed vacation. So send her jealousy rays and send her good energy so she has a good time on that week, and turn around and say hello to Reverend Julie on that camera right there and wave to everybody who's joining us in the Zoom watch party. We always begin our services with announcements here, so if you have something to share, do as David is doing and make a line on either side. Keep your mask on until you make it to the lectern here, then take it off so we can see your beautiful face, hear your beautiful voice. David.
Hi, my name is David Blythe, he, him. I'm here on behalf of the search committee with just a couple of announcements. We're having yet another retreat. We had one 3-4 weeks ago. We're having another one today, and so some of us will be getting up and leaving at 12 o'clock to go on to our retreat. So again, short services are always welcome. Gotta laugh twice for that. That's great. The other thing I just want to mention is we're excited about things. We sent out a message this week, and next Sunday after church we will have a kind of an update listening session, and we're going to figure out how to do it with both people here and with Zoom people as well. So we'll get you more details about that. Thank you.
That's the highest I've seen the mic. Hi. Whoop. I'm Jane Truehold, she, her. I sent out a notice on the listserv. There's a special election in Wisconsin that's happening April 4th. And it's very important because it could decide who has control of their Supreme Court, which is their highest court. And so I have some postcards here, which come in nice, neat little packets of 20 cards apiece. And we're writing to young people who are already registered to ask a friend to go register and then vote on April 4th. So these have to be done preferably by mid-February. There's a little bit of leeway in there. And Mary Russell and I will be at the back to hand out to the first comers.
Hello, my name is Laura Jane Kenny, and I'm here to invite anyone who's interested to join Judson's Sacred Reckonings group. Our first meeting will be next Sunday at 9:30. It'll be hybrid. We're working with Melissa to find the space in the church and remotely. This group is working on Judson's racial equity and developing more work with Judson to be anti-racist. If you are interested and would like to join and support, feel free to reach out to me or Mackie or Matthew Nelson. And again, our meeting will be next Sunday at 9:30. Thank you.
More announcements from folks. Okay. Well, I will give one more announcement. I know that we have a community member who has typically been sitting over on this side named Zen, who has very lovingly put away our chairs after the services, probably the past couple of months. I don't see Zen yet, but I know that Zen would love it if we would help to put the chairs away after the service. And if you need instruction, and Zen is over here, he can gladly help you. But you can see that we've modeled those stacks of chairs on either side here. If you have a rolling cart that is empty, make sure that you put the chair on where the front of the chair is facing the side that says front, because if it gets too high and we have them turned around, it will fall, okay? Thank you for your cooperation. And I invite you now to rise in body and or spirit and join me in Judson's land acknowledgement. Judson's physical space stands on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape people. Our community acknowledges the Munsee Lenape community, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations, and we make this acknowledgement as part of our work to dismantle the ongoing legacies of Christian supremacy, settler colonialism, and white supremacy. Please be seated. And as we move into our moment of our prelude, I want to say that I know that many of us are probably entering this space with even heavier hearts than usual today, with the wake of mass shootings that we continue to be hammered with the news of Tyre Nichols' murder at the hands of police. And I want to say that the themes of today's service were chosen weeks ago. But I'd like to believe that we can enter a space. It sounds like the spirits of this space agree as well. I'd like to believe that we can enter a space today where we are actively together co-creating new stories, new ways of being in the world. And it is my honor to welcome the cast of the Oresteia, a new folk opera that will have its next workshop showing this Wednesday at Judson Arts Wednesdays at 8 p.m. All of you are welcome. But I want to welcome them to the front now, along with Nate Weida, the composer and co-creator of the piece. We will talk more about the themes of the Oresteia later in this service, but the lyrics of the songs that will be shared today are in your bulletin if you would like to follow along. As you listen to these beautiful voices, thank you all so much for being here. Take it away.
to stay awake. Stare at blank waves that mock me as they swell and break. Someday some flames will end my wait, sending a signal, spelling out our fiery fate. So I watch for that light in the distance, but the light is very late. I wait for one small shining flicker, ending years of far-off war. My only friend, some cigarettes and liquor, till I don't have to wait no more. I'm watching for some godsend, waiting for the war to end, to end. Wish I could sleep this weight away, reading the same reports but barely finding change, following close the closed campaigns. I know our history, I know our course, I know the names, and I watch for that light in the distance, but I see no freedom flames. Distance, smoke and drink, tell me no lies. Can I trust such hopeful visions? Can I trust these tired eyes? Such secrets I'll keep in my chest. Oh, but you all know what's next, what's next.
BC 480, Aeschylus wrote about cycles of violence within a single family. He featured siblings, Electra and Orestes, killing their mother for, killing their father for, killing their daughter. They weren't the first, no, they weren't the last, but it circles round on a well-trodden path, yeah. Killing each other for, killing each other, hey! Began with Atreus the patriarch,
setting things off by stealing his own brother's throne,
killing his own nephews and feeding them to their father.
But one nephew survived
to kill his uncle's son,
to kill Agamemnon, that's Electra and Orestes' father,
to avenge his brother's slave.
Are you following what we're saying? We weren't the first, no, they weren't the last, but it circles round on a well-trodden path. Killing each other for, killing each other. Then Agamemnon,
The son of Medo, Atreus.
He got a wife and
They had several little ones.
but then his uncle,
you know that nephew left alive.
he still was creeping, waiting for a lucky break. So Agamemnon, following some shoddy tip, he killed his daughter, and that is not the worst of it. He killed his daughter just to get some wind and blow his ship. He killed his daughter just to get some wind and blow his ship. He killed his daughter just to get some wind and blow his ship. He killed his daughter just to get some wind and blow his ship. So here you find us, bodies cold and anchor fresh, a classic family, first to sink our crown of flesh. We weren't the first, no, we weren't the last, but it's a disaster on a long-trodden path.
Thank you all so much. You will hear from them later in the service, and thank you for just diving right in, folks. I know some of that music is fresh, and you brought it freshly into this space. If you would all please rise in body and or spirit. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes as I call us into the imaginal realm with a prayer for our mythologies. We begin with stories. We began with stories. Threads of gestures, then images, then language, looping in, tying together, telephoning, around a fire, inside a cave. When did wounds enter? Narrative dominates, the dominant narrative a scab, the convenient falsehoods pus, the complicating truths prohibited purification. I lie to myself 100 times a day, and I wonder what becomes of a population that does it 100 times a second. What stories have killed your spirit? Did you hear them, or did you tell them? What stories have birthed slaughtering systems? Have you turned away, or have you turned around? Anyone can become an ass. It just takes ignorance plus habit plus time. And imagine what millennia of it can collectively yield. I remember a rumor that began as a joke, 7th grade, preteen, mid-puberty, post-knowing better, and how good it felt to give in to the gossip, and how much it hurt to admit to its invention. It felt like the end of the world. It feels like the end of the world. Still, there are other stories conflagrant with the cure. There are other caves. Endings aren't just destinations, but mouths. Meet me at the fire. Let's find ourselves again in the ashes. Amen. Let's sing together. I love to tell the story.
Good morning, Judson. My name is Linda Saphan, she, hers, and hers. Today's ancient testimony from the Act of Apostles is a First Nation version. When the council heard these words, they were filled with rage and ground their teeth in anger and frustrations at him. But then the Holy Spirit filled many feathers with a great vision. He looked up into the spirit world above and saw a bright light shining from the Great Spirit. And standing next to him, at his right hand was Creator set free. "Look," he said, "I can see into the spirit world above. The sky has opened, and there at the right hand of the Great Spirit is a true human being." But they put their hand over their ears and screamed out loud as they all rushed together to take a hold of him. They dragged him outside of the village and began to throw stones at him to kill him. Those who spoke against him laid the outer garment at the feet of a young man whose name was Man Who Asked Questions. As they threw the stone at many feathers, he was sending his voice to the great spirits. "Creator set free, my honored chief," he called out to Creator. "Welcome my spirits as I come to you." He then fell on his knees and cried out with a loud voice, "Honored one, do not hold this wrong against them." Then, with a final breath, he fell asleep and crossed over to death.
Thank you so much, Linda, for that beautiful reading. And now we're going to sing an Al Carmine's classic. So Essie Borden is going to serve as our leader in this song, especially when we get to those baths at the end of the song. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, get ready. So Henco and Essie, thank you for leading us. And if you would rise in body and or spirit, let's believe in a new world.
I just wanted to say, I don't often remember what people say when they join the church, but I do remember when Abigail Hastings joined that she commented on this being the only church where they sang a hymn that had the word inexorably 3 times in a row. This is that hymn. It's a little bit tricky. When you get to the end of the last page, go back to the beginning and sing a page and a half until we get to the end.
Thank you so much, Essie. Would you all pray with me? May I say what I need to say, and may you hear what you need to hear. Amen. Oh, I believe in a new world. I do. Yes, I do. And every so often, if I'm being honest, and with apologies to the Reverend Al Carmines, I have my doubts sometimes. So I'm grateful to be in a space today where it is our invitation and duty to creatively resurrect new worlds in the constant wake of continuing crucifixions in this old world. And I want to begin by inviting us into a little visioning story exercise today before we listen to some more visioning story songs. The spirits are still here. You hear that? Okay. Keep coming if you need to, folks. I love to tell some stories, and I hate to tell other stories. What are the stories you tell? What are the stories you tell others about yourself? What are the stories you tell yourself about yourself? What are the stories you avoid hearing? What are the stories that you are actively seeking out? What are the stories you keep close to your chest and far from your newsfeed and pray no one unearths them until long after you are gone? What are the stories that we collectively tell in order to keep ourselves from actually actively becoming who we know we need to be? I have loved stories for as long as I can remember. I've preached countless sermons with the same basic thesis. Tell your story. Be the artist of your own narrative. Many of you have heard those sermons. Our Judson Arts Wednesdays programs are platforms for storytelling. Our tradition of gathering in this space every Sunday at 11 a.m. is founded on the desire to keep a certain collection of sacred stories bubbling in our collective imagination. And I stand by storytelling as one of the greatest tools humans have ever discovered. I live by that amazing Joan Didion quotation on the cover of your bulletin. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. And I live by that saccharine, anonymous self-help statement: the shortest distance between two people is a story. We are meaning-seeking creatures. We seek it everywhere. We want to make sense of continuing mass violence. We want to connect the sequential dots of a horrific tragedy. We want to create narrative as a means of seeking some safety in an always chaotic world. But as I've witnessed false news and false stories and complete false narratives and histories spread with fervent fire, and as I've witnessed other stories being left unheard and unabsorbed and uncelebrated and sometimes even blatantly silenced, I've concluded that just as the beautiful sentiments about stories I just shared are true, the exact opposite is also true. Sadly, we not only tell our stories in order to live, we tell ourselves stories often in order to kill, literally and figuratively. We tell ourselves stories in order to silence, in order to hide from reality. We construct elaborate, overarching meta-narratives in order to ignore the particular stories of others, especially the already marginalized. And the shortest distance between two people can be a story, but a story can also widen the gap between two people, or between 200 people, or 2,000, or between 2 million people. And this week, we hadn't even caught our breath in the continuing wake of stories of mass shootings when we were also forced to face the story of a horrific murder, the murder of Tyree Nichols at the hands of 5 police officers. And these enraging stories pile on top of the stories that fill each of our own individual existences. And of course, as always, our systems and the leaders who keep those systems in place, they are hard at work. They are hard at work and begun to do what they do best, spinning the narrative, telling us stories. And so we will hear stories that will help them to preserve themselves and the deadly status quos at the root of our violent systems. We tell ourselves stories in order to explain away any possibility of change. Often our stories keep us in cycles we do much better to break. Stories are tools and stories are weapons. Stories can resurrect, but stories can also crucify. You just heard Linda read today's ancient testimony from the book of the Acts of the Apostles. And it was in the First Nations version, but if you looked into the parentheses after each of the names that were in there, you would see that this is the story of Stephen. This is the story of the mob lynching of the first Christian martyr. Christianity's loquacious proto-saint, the disciple who tells a whopper of a story right before he is executed on the spot. The backstory here is that Stephen is a very good storyteller. He is a model storyteller. He is picking up the mantle that Jesus has left behind. Jesus has just been executed at the hands of empire. And Stephen is hell-bent on spreading the Jesus gospel to his fellow Hellenistic Jews and trying to make miracles in the way a good disciple does. And he is called to explain himself before the Sanhedrin. And if you don't know who the Sanhedrin were a religious council of Jewish rabbis. So instead of cowering or backtracking, Stephen stands firm in front of the council and tells a story. And Stephen's story basically takes up the entirety of the 7th chapter of the Acts of the Apostles. I'm glad I didn't make you read that entire chapter, Linda. He starts at the very beginning, a very good place to start, and draws a narrative legacy line all the way from the origins of the Jewish people through all of the Hebrew stories of their failures and successes, and ends up right where he wants to, showing the Jesus followers who are not yet called Christians as the next natural phase in evolution of Judaism. He connects that history all back through Jewish history so that he can give legitimacy to the new Jesus followers. And as you can imagine, it's complicated. Immediately following Stephen's long-winded speech, we get this moment you heard Linda read. The Sanhedrin Jewish Religious Council finds Stephen guilty of heresy, and he is executed. The gathered mob decides to kill Stephen's story at the root before it spreads any further, and here's where it gets really interesting. Because Stephen's story doesn't die there. It actually stems off in multiple directions, both good and bad. You'll notice that toward the end of the passage, one of the witnesses to Stephen's murder is a young man named Saul. And you good Bible scholars know who Saul is. Thank you, Keen. Beautiful. I like a little audience participation. Paul. Saul will soon have a conversion experience on the road to Damascus and change his name to Paul and become the most famous spreader of the Christian story in history. And you might also notice that the words Stephen bellows as he dies are very, very similar to those words spoken by the world's most famous crucified man, Jesus. Whoever first told this story and then whoever got it written down wants to lay a deep intertextual foundation in order to support the larger overarching story of Christianity. This is about legitimizing the story of Christianity by linking it to the story of the Jewish people. And if you are paying close attention, You might also know that Stephen's speech connecting the history of the Jewish people to the Christian story has often been used throughout modern history to justify anti-Semitism and genocide. We just observed International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and it's well worth noting that in a world where Christian supremacy has wreaked violent havoc, Stephen's original beautiful story of lineage, if not carefully heard and carefully tended, carefully questioned, and continually re-examined, it can be and has been manipulated into a story designed to kill. Stories can resurrect, and stories can crucify. The distance between the two isn't always as wide as we would like to believe. Finding the balance between embodying your own story and allowing the stories of others to change your own story is very tricky. So in a moment, we are going to hear a few more story songs from our Judson Arts operatic adaptation of the Oresteia. But if you don't know the Oresteia, it's an ancient Greek cycle of tragic plays in which a family lives out the curses thrust upon them by decisions made over the course of their familial line. As you heard our amazing singers sing today, they keep killing each other for killing each other, for killing each other, for killing each other. And here's all you really need to know about the plot. Everyone thinks that their story is the accurate one. Everyone thinks they need revenge in order to fix their own story. And no one wants to listen to anyone else's story. It's everything you want in a drama and nothing you want in real life. I hope we all want to uncover what ancient stories might have to tell us about how we might reshape our own stories. That's what we're doing here at this weird place. How we might listen for stories we've been tuning out, how we might integrate stories so that all voices can get a bit closer to harmony. And I hope that's why you think you're here. Because this invitation cannot be accepted unless we pledge to be honest about our own historical missteps, honest about our own unintentional shortcomings and intentional myopia. Stories are not just things we tell in order to underline our own cases. Stories can be catalysts for change. And in ancient times, Greek drama was not simply storytelling as entertainment or propaganda. It was storytelling as cathartic communal change agent. Greek drama was designed and presented in order to hold an uncompromising mirror up to human failure, human greed, human disregard for diversity, equity, inclusion, and collective liberation. And Greek drama invited audiences to question their own assumptions by recognizing themselves in the flawed characters, and to bear their own souls by likening their own shortcomings to those of the characters. Whichever character you don't like the most in the Oresteia, I won't finish that sentence. Greek drama loved to tell the story, not because it let them celebrate themselves and move on, but because telling the story made them look in the mirror, rethink their assumptions, and try to change. And sometimes I fear that our scriptures, the ancient stories that we share in this space, can seem so distant and so musty and so abstract that we don't see how our stories can be just as epic in great and terrible ways. But as you listen to these characters sing today, I invite you to reconsider those questions we started with a few minutes ago and test the spirits of your own stories. The characters in the Oresteia are dealing with the same themes at the center of our own continuing stories: empire violence, an impenetrable caste system, militarized brutality, systemic racism, overwhelming poverty, the war economy, distorted morality. Sadly, the ancient is the contemporary. But we have one thing now that these ancient characters no longer have. We have the current opportunity to tell and to listen and to change our stories. We have the current opportunity to enact our imaginations and be the generation that conjures new visions for community care that does not rely on policing. New visions for community care that does not rely on brutality and empire power. Decades ago, St. James Baldwin suggested a storytelling test to reimagine this country, a country that has hidden behind false stories for centuries. And St. Baldwin said, go back to where you started. Go back to where you started, as far back as you can. Examine all of it. Travel your road again and tell the truth about it. Every time we revisit our stories, we have the opportunity to tell the truth about those stories. That's what we're doing here every Sunday, looking at our collective stories and testing whether they crucify or resurrect, looking at the individual stories that we keep quiet in our own hearts and deciding whether they crucify us or resurrect us. What stories have you told yourself? What stories have you heard about yourself that you need to break free from? What stories are you desperately avoiding? Do you believe in a new world? You know that you can change the story, right? Do you know that we can change the story? Do your stories resurrect without crucifying yourself or crucifying others? If they don't, if we just uncover a bunch of false news, it's time to gather again around the fire. I will meet you at the fire. Burn those stories down. Become ashes. Become a beautiful garland of storytelling, ashes. And together, we will create the truthful good news that will bring all of us back to liberative life. So now, I would love for you to give your attention again to these amazing performers. I welcome Nate and Dante up. You're going to hear 3 songs. Again, you've got the lyrics in front of you. First is of grief-stricken lament. The second is of violent determination. Then the last one is of tentative hope. You'll follow Electra as she moves toward a violent, crucifying choice, and in witnessing her choice, we have the opportunity to choose a different choice, to imagine new possibilities. Electra can't see her way out of her own story. Stories can crucify others and ourselves unless we are willing to interrogate and reimagine them, so don't just let them be stories. Let's tell ourselves new stories. And good luck if you recognize yourself in Electra, because I know I do. Take it away, folks.
Why have you all stopped crying? Is it too much to bear? There's no room for peace or patience, and your silence makes no sense, for grief requires constant care. time for honor. Do memories fade so fast? We will never have a future if my voice does not endure and you all forget the past. Who am I without all of this rage? I'm nothing if I turn the page. I'm certain Orestes will return. That morning, my mourning will end. Dear Father, we will avenge you. That plan is the only way. Until then, I grieve every day. Fingers of God's always pointing your way. So much to scream, with nothing new to say. Now as the depths devour you, Electra, you're bound for some place new. Waiting for no one has clouded the course. Watching and wailing makes you simply blind and hoarse. Now, as you crumble to the floor, Electra, you're bound for something more. I am not a I am a warrior, and warriors don't worry. Warriors just do what needs to be done. Never the one who took up space, always the one politely trying to find my place. Now as my naive plot unspools, I gather up my wits, my nerve, my strength, my tools. He might be dead, but I'm still alive, and it's on anger that I survive. My hope and conscience both scrubbed clean, I will unfurl a fury they have never seen. I am a warrior, and warriors don't worry. Warriors just do what needs to be done. Clytemnestra, 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 Clytemnestra. Kingdoms fall, but kingdoms rise again. Father might be in the ground, but there are honorable men who will stand up, speak out, and take back all the power, and then we'll be rid of this world of murder, sick, entitled women. Warriors do what simply must be done, and I will follow Father's model till this war is won. The system works if you return to how it should be run. With my brother dead, I am my only father's son.
lying in my bed, lying in my tomb. No, this isn't a sad song, give it a chance. Last night I looked for the moon, holding on to hope, holding my warm womb. No, this isn't a sad song, give me a chance. The dark of midnight hovered, a terrifying lover, who I've known for far longer than I care to admit. Yes, I've known him for so long, he still scares me shitless. I know him, that's all I know. Have you ever feared your best friend? Tell me, have you ever feared your best friend? Well, I fear we all fear in the end. Last night I looked for the moon, lying in my bed, lying in my tomb. Still, this isn't a sad song, give it a chance. The dark of midnight lingered, I took my pinky finger, and I tried to point my way toward that moon that used to save me. But that moon that used to save me disappeared some time ago. All I know is darkness, that's all I know. Have you ever feared your best friend? Tell me, have you ever feared your best friend? Well, I fear we all fear in the end. You know what? I hate metaphors. Don't you hate metaphors? The moon so pregnant with possibility, the moon so pregnant with stability. Well, I hate the moon. The dark of midnight lingered, I took my pinky finger and tried to point my way to that moon that used to save me. But the moon that used to save me disappeared some time ago. All I know is darkness, that's all I know. Have you ever feared your best friend? Tell me, have you ever feared your best friend? Well, I fear we all fear in the end. And the darkness we fear in the end may be our only friend. When the old moons of hope are gone, and we're trying to go on, maybe darkness is a canvas to build new light upon. Maybe darkness is a canvas to build new light upon.
Let's keep the applause up for these amazing people up here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for spending Sunday morning with us as well. If you would like to see how things turn out, Wednesday at 8, these amazing folks will be joined by 6 or 7 other folks who will be singing and telling this story. If you're wondering who Clytemnestra is and why Electra screamed her name 4 times, you should be there on Wednesday at 8, because you will certainly learn who she is. Would you please rise in body and or spirit? That spirit's back. Beautiful. Okay. as we sing together the Canticle of the Turning, I invite you to take those lyrics into your heart and into the rest of your day with you. Also, during that song, old-fashioned baskets will be passed around. We're going to be like a good Baptist church. During that final song, there's going to be baskets passed around if you would like to give monetarily to our programming, to keeping this building running, to keeping this congregation alive. We will gladly accept your monetary gifts. If you are the type who likes to give online or via app instead, we can meet you there too. It is listed in your bulletin, and for folks on the live stream and in the Zoom room, it is now shared with you in the chat. But before we sing together, this service might be ending, but our service in the world continues. Take the stories that you brought into this space, shake off the ones that are crucifying you. Take the ones that resurrect you into the world and share them. Be the glitter and the change you wish to see in the world until that turning world meets us where we are. Amen. time in our service where we bid adieu to Reverend Julie and all of the folks who are joining us from home. So turn around, say goodbye to those folks. We feel you in the room. Maybe you're the ones who are making that sound for us. This is the time where we share celebrations and concerns from the lectern here. We open up and join in sharing whatever is bringing you joy, what is bringing you